Thank you so much, Flavia. That was really, really fascinating. And I'm going to keep an eye on the Q&A in case any questions come in from the attendees. I was really excited about many things that you said, but one of the things that stood out is this iterative process between modeling and you've integrated data and you've produced some interim or early model output, and that feeds directly into some kind of field validation activity. And then that field activity improves the model further, and it creates this iterative complementary circle. And that's something that the IDEAMAPS network is really keen to see operationalized. So I'm just curious to hear more about, was that process very manual for you? And do you see how it might be built into a kind of data ecosystem that it could be supported and kind of streamlined in some way?
This process came from the beginning. While we established which typology, then we took already the results of the collaborative mapping that was going on. We went to the field to check. So somehow we already had previous results to share with those that were working with the mapping. And afterwards, with the results of the models, then we were talking again. And even the second stage, when we were trying to estimate the household population, this was also very interesting because we had one estimation and some of them had other estimation, and then we had maps of here it matches, here it didn't. So let's check if you want to, if we need a survey, then which would be the place that would be prioritized, because these information are contrasting. But here, no. Here we had different methods, but we came to things that are very similar. We were lucky in some sense because this project were going on, and the municipalities were, most of them, already involved in this process, and they had regional agents there, Baixada Santista agents, that was also together with CDA2 coordinating. But of course, there is a diversity of mapping capacity. I don't know how to say that. We had some municipalities that they already had most of things. They are actually one. They had very good mapping system that was even online. And others that were even difficult to explain and to agree about the concept of precarious settlements. For instance, we had a municipality that understood that precarious settlements were just those ones in public land. So in case they were in private land, they should not be mapped, you know. And also there are some precarious settlements that they were already the target of some urbanization process. So somehow it's like this is past, but in fact, what the models were showing, and the fieldwork as well, that there are remaining in precariousness, there problems there, that because the urbanization could not address all the dimensions of housing needs. That's very common. It's even the topic of student now we have. I mean, what are the remaining dimensions of housing needs that we are still finding in those settlements that were already urbanized and often are not seen by the municipalities as a problem anymore, at least not as a precarious settlements anymore.
When you say urbanized, do you mean that there's been a type of slum upgrading process or gentrification, yeah, or both?
I mean projects of slum upgrading.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, and so then characterizing the issues that remain in housing even after a slum upgrading process has happened.
And that's also why it came the demand to have this housing need assessment, what's inside and what's outside precarious settlements, because it's very common to have housing policies here, which is open housing provision, you know. People who want a house, they fill a cadastre and they may get a house, but the precarious settlements are still there. Maybe some could get on this new house, but the precarious settlements was there. And what was interesting in this last state housing plan was the recognition of the need to upgrade this space as well, which is related to a different kind of approach, housing policy approach, right? I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, I'm going to turn now to a question that's coming in from Devani Kohli. She says, very interesting presentation. I was impressed with the amount of spatial data that is available through the municipality website on favelas in Brazil. Could you shed some light on the definition they use to map?
On precarious settlements? Or
yeah, maybe some of the different definitions that were used in the different municipalities.
Yes. Well, we have a federal definition. That's not by accident that I use the term precarious settlements. It's because we say that here. So precarious settlements is a established concept in housing policy that includes favelas, informal settlements. For instance, I showed this T5 typology, which you see, we cannot call that favela, but it's precarious settlements as well. Includes cortiços, which I don't know how to translate it in English, but it's a building that many people share rooms in this building.
Like a hostel?
Like a hostel, exactly. Like a hostel, we call that cortiços. And also precarious housing projects. We have projects that they are quite precarious, and they are categorized as precarious settlements in this official concept as well. But of course, this still gives lots of room to interpretation, right? And that's the point when you go to this mapping with the municipalities, because it didn't make sense for us, the university, or even for the state, the CDHU, to map these precarious settlements if the municipality would not recognize it as a precarious settlement. So that was the importance of talking before, of having this meeting. Actually, they had not only to map, but they had also to fill lots of data about these precarious settlements in terms of the infrastructure, lots of in terms of legal issues, property, lots of information they had to fill. And even they had to categorize these precarious settlements in terms of the complexity of the urbanization that would be involved. If it was a simple upgrading, simple urbanization process that was needed, if it was a complex one, if it was a complete removal, because sometimes the area is really, it's really not possible to keep those people there. And there were other cases that it's just a matter of legal papers, you know, to have the, so it's much simpler. So this was, there were a lot of discussion on that for sure.
That's really interesting that you've got a national definition that sounds like it's quite standardized in a way that should be easy to operationalize or semi-clear to operationalize, and still have some kind of denial happening by lower levels of government about what they have to deal with as a precarious settlement.
Yeah, like I said, even the federal definition gives a lot of room for interpretation, right? I mean, what is a favela? What is an informal settlement? So,
and it sounds like you're finding in the MAPA project and this follow-on project that's scaling up to the point that Devani asked a follow-up question about, you know, does this existing definition of precarious housing actually miss a lot of deprived households? In the end, do you find a lot of households that are deprived that don't fall under that definition as it's operationalized?
Households itself.
Yeah, households or areas, I guess.
Households or areas. Okay, because the official assessment we have in Brazil, it's like I said, it's household based. It is a rich microdata. So you see, oh, it's the cost of the dwelling. We have a problem with the cost of the dwelling. We have a problem with infrastructure. we have a problem. The dwelling is too small for the size of the family, so it's too dense. So this we can check through this microdata. The problem and the challenge of this project was to put these households in space, right? Because this microdata is for the whole municipality. So that was the point that we want to get, and we did a methodology for that with imperfections, of course, but because it was very important for us to understand where were these needs, if they were inside these precarious settlements or outside, and which kind of action or programmatic line of the housing plan would these numbers fit. So understand that it's a macro plan, right, for the whole state, but it should be done regionally, and it started with the region of Baixada Santista.
Yeah. And you've talked about the collaborative mapping process, which, if I understood correctly, involved people in the housing agency as well as the government, right? Local government. What's the role of communities or the relationship with communities and community organizations in this process? I'm sure.
To be honest, none. It was mainly through the municipality government and the state government. There was no community leaders involved in this mapping process.
Would you have changed that if you could roll back time? And has there been any challenges that have emerged as a result of that?
I think about that, how to change that. And I still don't know. That's an open question for me, because as the previous presentation could rise, it's kind of still such a macro discussion that I still don't know. It's something I have to think more about, how to engage community in this process. It's different from when we are talking about the project of upgrading a slum. Then it's not possible to do it without involving the community. It's not even legal to do this. But at this scale, I still don't know, honestly. I don't know how to do it and how we could do it together, and how we would be able even to motivate to this discussion, right? I don't know. It's an honest answer.
I invite Elsa, Adesola, or Vinod to turn on your cameras and microphones if you wanted to jump in here with any thoughts about how communities could be involved with kind of citywide, municipality-wide slum mapping or modeling initiatives. Any thoughts?
Well, I can say a few words, and then we'll see if our colleagues from Nigeria would like to. I think it's a very long drawn process. It does require some kind of community organization that's already present, because if you look at the way the SDI partners work, there are federating communities which is like a registered or an unregistered body of people who live across slums, and that volume grows over time, and it's a solidarity network which tries to share information, share knowledge, and kind of ask for state action, right? So when you have an opportunity, so the initial days of the federation's work was much more paper-based, sort of just plain data collection that would change things. But then they started working with technological aids, and do work with institutions that do provide technological help in terms of, say, doing a mapping process, etc. The advantage of doing it with the communities is because then you're kind of doubly sure that the mapping is much more accurate, and certain spaces actually mean this versus what is being officially said, right? So I think the community organizations need to be present irrespective of what, and then all these processes kind of latch on to those community networks. That's what I would say. Over to you, Nigerian and colleagues.
Thank you. It's only me now, sorry, but Adeshra had to go. He's having a 6-hour exam tomorrow to become a community paralegal, so he has to go back to his notes. But I would say that it's probable that there's already some key actors playing some different roles, even like a community mobilization and some like horizontal organization within the different communities. So my main point would be like to try and see what is already existing, because as has just been mentioned, like to go with the idea of those network, like it needs to be organized, and it's something that comes through time. Like we're still quite a young federation within the SDI movement, and we are still like facing issue and trying to sort out some organization, like where we want to go and how we want to go within federation. So I'm pretty sure that like there's already some kind of like maybe less developed or less built movement or association or like solidarity movement between the communities and inside the different communities. So trying to map out what already exists and trying to see how they can now come and play a role or join the process. I think that would be the best next steps for this.
Thanks so much, Vinod and Elsa. Anything else to add, Flavia, before we wrap up? We're just about at time.
Yes, definitely. It is a big challenge to include community in these maps. And like they pointed very well, it demands time and organization. And even at this level with the municipalities, we were able to do it because there was somehow an organization. And even for us, let's say academics, it was often a challenge to communicate our results. Like very often the models were showing something different and how they would think that was strange. And then we would have to find other ways to show why the model presented that. So that's also this thing I said about the step-by-step was also trying to break the process of modeling in simpler parts as an effort to communicate it better. But still, we were all in front of computers, we were all with Excel sheets, and it's much more difficult if we talk about people's level, right? The day by day, those people that are actually there at the settlement.
Yeah, it's not easy to bring together stakeholders who kind of operate at different geographic scales and also use very different methods for communication, have different language about the methods, have different methods itself. And it's a huge challenge, yeah.
And it's also a matter of scale, from the state to the region to the municipality, and that's it, right? And the settlement.
Well, we'll see how well we perform at this, but one major goal of the IDEAMAPS network is to try to develop some kind of data ecosystem and processes that can facilitate the involvement of all the different important stakeholders. So government has a role in validating and being part of the iterations, but so do communities as well, especially those kind of community organizations that represent a large movement of people across different settlements in a city or municipality. So we'll see how well we can do that, because it's hard. You're designing for multiple users all at the same time. It's not just, you know, one activity. It's a huge challenge, but we are at time. It's been a really, really lovely bunch of presentations and dialogue, and I just can't thank the speakers enough, as well as all the attendees who've been participating. We are going to be putting up videos of each of the presentations, and for people who presented slides, the slides will become available online as well. So just stay posted on the IDEAMAPS website by sometime tomorrow. And until next year, 2021, when we do our next IDEAMAPS Lounge, I wish you all a happy new year and hopefully some rest toward the end of this very crazy year. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.